What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Friday edition of the Casual Wrestling Daily Podcast. I am your host, the Notorious Nerdy D, and as always on Fridays, I'm joined by my co-host and beautiful wife, Level Up Lauren.
What's up, y'all?
Tonight, we are about to break down pro wrestling for all the true casual fans. So whether you are listening on podcast networks or watching on YouTube, make sure to like and leave a comment on this week's episode. This is the last episode of 2022, so it is fitting that we do our awards at the last possible minute, Lauren.
Yes, sir.
So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our year-end awards. All right, Lauren, I've been putting this off for about a week and a half trying to figure out how I wanted to present these awards to everybody, but I think I figured out how we're going to do this. So there's 7 awards. We'll run through our 7 awards. I think we got it pretty right. I think the listeners and us together, we got most of this pretty right. There wasn't too much disagreements, but we're going to kind of, so what I want to do is how we're going to do this. We'll present the 4 nominees.
All right.
Then we'll present the winner of the award. And then we can talk about how we got to that winner from the casual point of view. Because these are the Casual Wrestling Awards. That is the official name that we're naming these.
All right.
These are the awards brought to the wrestlers by the casual wrestling community. So let's start right off. We start off with the feud of the year. And this is interesting because this I thought could go multiple directions. And we had 4 nominees. We had Sheamus versus Gunther, which I thought was a worthy contender. So, some of these, when we get into some of these awards, there's people who I don't think had a shot.
Yeah.
But I really think that at least 3 out of the 4 here had a real opportunity. We had Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar.
Yes, sir.
We had Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes. And we had Becky versus Bianca. Mm-hmm. And the winner of the 2022 feud of the year is Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes.
Okay.
So let me tell you how we got there. Okay.
All right.
So Seth versus Cody was your vote.
Uh-huh.
Seth versus Cody was my vote.
Okay.
And 69% of our listeners voted for Seth versus Cody.
Well, then we're all just super amazing.
That was our clean sweep. This vote had 189 votes. When I look at this list, I think the only other real contender for feud of the year would have been Roman and Brock, but I don't think that it was long enough. Mm-hmm. It happened at 2 different sections. We got it right before WrestleMania, and then we got it for SummerSlam, and then it was done. And they build it each time as like the last time you're ever going to see this.
Yes.
So I don't know that qualified. Sheamus versus Gunther was too short. Now, I don't know about recent, but it was too short for me to go feud of the year. And then Becky versus Bianca, I guess I really could have made an argument for that. Because it was, that's been going on since last SummerSlam.
Yeah.
That's kind of the most complete feud. I just don't know that it ever culminated.
There's very impactful moments between Seth and
it was so bam, bam, bam.
The purple nipple.
It was, right? It was the return at WrestleMania was huge, and that got attention.
Yep.
Then I think they did something at Backlash, and then you got Hell in a Cell, and so it was just in your, because it really, when you look at it, it was about a 3 month long thing that got cut short by Cody's injury. But I do at the end of the day, I agree with the listeners, and I agree with you on the fact that Seth versus Cody, to me, was the most captivating feud of the year for us. All right, let's jump into our second award here, which was the Premium Live Event of the Year. And this was our most controversial award that we had, because it's all, the voting is all over the place, which I don't know if that speaks to it being a good or a bad. I think that speaks to it to being a good year, because we all had different things we pulled out that we really liked.
I could see it that way too.
And so our nominees were SummerSlam, WrestleMania Saturday, Clash at the Castle, or WrestleMania Sunday. Now, there were a few write-ins for Survivor Series, not enough that it warranted,
something.
Yeah, it didn't. I don't even think it hit 1%, but there were 4 or 5 write-ins for Survivor Series, which is interesting because I don't think Survivor Series was a premium live event of the year quality. It wasn't bad, but I don't know if it met these standards. So the winner for the 2022 Casual Wrestling Community Awards Premium Live Event of the Year was WrestleMania Saturday.
Yes.
Now this is
How do
where
we
it
get
got
there?
so this is where it got tricky. This is where a lot of math got involved. Because if we just would have gone off our listeners' votes, the listeners chose Clash at the Castle with 48% of the vote of 158 votes. But they chose WrestleMania Saturday at 23%. And I originally said that your vote would count for 33% and my vote would count for 33%. So if you add your 33 to the 23, it puts WrestleMania Saturday as our casual wrestling premium live event of the year, which I'm not mad at. I think that when I go back, that's Stone Cold Kevin Owens, right? That's Becky Bianca. That's Usos.
It's
Rick
Cody
Boog,
and Seth.
Shinsuke. That's Cody, Seth. Yeah.
Rick Boogs. Remember, that's where his
where he
leg.
busted up his leg. That's where Drew McIntyre cut through the ropes. That's Logan and Miz, right?
Amazing. Yes.
That's Logan, Miz, and the Mysterios.
Am I crazy, or did Pat McAfee perform?
Yeah, that was Austin Theory, Pat McAfee.
It did happen.
Or was that night 2?
I mean, I could be like mixing them all together.
I am too. Hold on. No, that was night 2.
Okay.
That was night 2.
See,
because night one was Kevin Owens and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Then they came back. Stone Cold came back and did it again the next night when Austin Theory. We were driving home from Dallas watching it on the screen in the car. Yeah. So that's our most controversial one. Let's move on here to the match.
People chose wisely.
The people chose Clash at the Castle.
Well, the people who chose with me chose wisely.
Well, here, let's go back real quick. SummerSlam received 13%, and that was my vote.
Oh.
So you won by 10%.
Well, those 10% of people
that's
were
not
exceptionally
out of 158
amazing.
votes. That's like 5 or 6 votes.
Those were amazingly great people.
All right, so let's talk about match of the year.
Okay.
Match of the year, we had Gunther versus Sheamus. We had Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins. We had Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, and we had Charlotte versus Ronda, which is these are pretty similar to our feuds of the year, except we're replacing Bianca and Becky with Charlotte versus Ronda. And the winner was Gunther versus Sheamus.
Really?
That was our winner.
How do we get there?
So, all right. So how we got there was the listeners chose Gunther versus Sheamus at 44% of the vote with 178 votes. This was one of our highest voted on awards. I chose Sheamus versus Gunther.
And I chose
Cody versus Seth Rollins.
That's right.
So interesting there, though. That's interesting that our feud of the year was Cody versus Seth, and it's universally kind of agreed on by our listeners, but me and our listeners were kind of willing to pull out like a little bit of a piece of that one match at Clash at the Castle between Gunther and Sheamus was phenomenal. And to me, I think it was even more important because I was not familiar with Gunther at the time. And I knew Sheamus and I knew how good Sheamus could be, but like they elevated each other, and that match, it's special to me because I think predictably I would go for Roman versus Brock, right? Predictably, I would go for Cody versus Seth. I'd take the safe kind of answer, but this was the most kind of off the beaten path for my likings of wrestling. But I still thought Charlotte versus Ronda was a really good match at Backlash.
Yes.
So I had no problem with it, and I think when I looked at the voting, all of these matches were
pretty close.
Not pretty close, but they all got votes. So I wasn't far off on the nominees there.
All
right. So we have female superstar of the year. And our list consisted of Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair, Bianca Belair, and Becky Lynch. Now we had some write-ins for Sasha Banks. Not enough that it made a splash, but I think there was Sasha support for, I guess she was there half a year. She's still eligible to win an award. But the winner of the 2022 Casual Wrestling Female Superstar of the Year was
who?
Bianca Belair.
Okay.
So let me tell you how we got there.
Okay.
All right. You chose Becky Lynch, which is interesting. I kind of want to make you defend that because how was Becky female of the year?
Because she's Becky Lynch. She's bigger than life. Okay, so I do like Bianca Belair. I'm not going to hate on her, right? I really, really, really enjoy her.
Slow down. This isn't who you like. Who had the best year? Bianca's had the title.
So, Becky Lynch is the most innovative. She sat there and has changed her character like 50 million times.
Okay,
I mean,
50 million times is 2. Okay. She was injured for a good portion of the year.
But still, when she comes back with a bang. She comes into the freaking stand. She comes out with these outlandish outfits.
I'm not against...
She makes you pay attention to her.
And that's all good if Bianca Belair didn't dominate the whole year. That's my only problem, right? And I'm not saying that I'm not even saying Bianca was the most interesting, but I think when you talk about who had the best year, it's Bianca Belair had the best year in all of female wrestling. And how we got there was you chose Becky. The listeners took Bianca Belair at 71%. Yeah. So it dominated at 178 votes. And I took Bianca Belair.
All right. I'll concede. I accept it.
I understand the arguments you're making for Becky Lynch because if
I just chose straight off of who I liked.
That's not how awards work. We're going to have to work on that.
But to me, that means she had the best year because in my mind, she had the best year. Like, she's the one who I paid attention to the most. I like Bianca Belair.
That's a funny...
It depends on how you take it.
But I don't think that's fair because when you go most valuable player, because that's essentially what this is, value is not interesting. When you talk about other sports... Mm-hmm. There's certain players who are very interesting to watch and certain people are interesting to watch and you get excited, but they're not the most valuable and they're not the best and they haven't had the best year. I think we're going to get to that in the last one and we'll talk. Okay. So we'll talk more. I don't want to hit on that too much. Right. Let's go to breakout star of the year. So for breakout star of the year, we had Raquel Rodriguez, Austin Theory, Logan Paul, and Pat McAfee.
Yes.
And the 2022 casual wrestling breakout star of the year was Logan Paul.
Okay.
I think that was it was pretty safe to assume. I did. So I'll tell you, the listener vote, how we got there, 53% of listeners chose Logan Paul.
Okay.
But there was like 30 to 35% that chose Austin Theory.
Really?
Yeah. So there was some contention between Austin Theory and Logan Paul. And I think if you remove Logan Paul from this discussion, even though he only had 3 matches, Austin Theory was the clear-cut favorite. It's just unfortunate that Logan Paul showed up and stole the entire show. Amazing. I chose Logan. You chose Logan. Listeners chose Logan. Clean sweep of Logan Paul.
Yes, sir.
So, all right, let's move on. Tag team of the year.
Tag team.
The nominees were The Usos, RK Bro, New Day, and Damage Control. I think this was possibly the most lopsided. I mean, really, when you look at that, RK Bro would have been, if they had a full year, possibly a contender. But name another tag team that's even like in the same atmosphere as the Usos right now.
There's not one.
So the winners were the Usos. How we got there was 167 votes on this round. There was 88% chose the Usos.
Yeah.
Not 100%, which is, no. Which is a certain amount. When you look in the comments, there's some trolls. There's some people naming people that aren't even in WWE, but for the most part, at 88%, I chose the Usos. You chose the Usos. I don't like. There wasn't another option. There literally wasn't another option.
True.
Okay, let's finish this off. This is the big award of the year. This is like actor of the year. This is male superstar of the year because this is the toughest one, I think, to vote on for some people.
Okay.
When it's not the year 2022.
Yeah.
Normally this would have more contention. So we had Roman Reigns, we had Drew McIntyre, we had Brock Lesnar, and we had Gunther. And you got upset.
I did.
Because Sami Zayn did not make the official nominee list.
I did. I was upset.
So I understand the Sami Zayn hype. I get it. I get why everybody's on board. I'm on board with the Sami Zayn hype, but you got to tell me, what has Sami done to be superstar of the year. If you wanted to make an argument for like most improved, even breakout star of the year, because I don't think breakout star has to be somebody who just started. I think it's somebody who breaks through the glass ceiling. There could have been an argument that he should have been in breakout star of the year, but I don't. When you're talking male superstar, how many premium live events was Sami Zayn the main event? I mean, I guess one Survivor Series.
I speak from my heart.
No, I
love
understand
Sami Zayn.
it. And
he
look,
has a way to get the crowd under control that like
you're
is
not
crazy.
You're not alone. There was a handful of write-ins for Sami Zayn.
Good.
So you're not like I'm just trying to. I guess I'm conveying this to you and to the people who wrote him in. Is I get the immediate love for Sami Zayn. I get having that spot in your heart for Sami Zayn. But let's go ahead and the 2022 Male Superstar of the Year from the Casual Wrestling Awards was Roman Reigns.
Of course.
How do you?
I know.
I'm sorry. I had this argument yesterday about fucking Sports Illustrated who chose Seth Rollins. How do you give me one fucking argument that says anybody had a more successful year than Roman Reigns? And if you're making that argument, it is the same argument as saying that LeBron James is not the greatest player of his time in the NBA, right?
Yeah.
It's just, it comes from a place of hate and not from a place of logic. You cannot argue that the person who was the top guy in the biggest wrestling company for
almost 2 years.
But I'm talking about we're talking about from January 1st. This is a war, right? From January 1st to December. Is there 31 days in December?
Yes.
December 31st, Roman Reigns has been that guy.
Yeah. You're right.
And the Sami Zayn shit, like, though, you have to consider Roman Reigns is the sun. Everything else are just planets orbiting the sun. Sami Zayn's just orbiting the sun. He's just residual from how over Roman Reigns and the Bloodline are. And that's great. Like, I'm all for that. But there is no... let's talk about how we got here. I chose Roman Reigns. You chose Sami Zayn. The listeners chose Roman at 79%.
Okay.
I don't remember who someone else got some votes. It might have been Brock Lesnar.
Okay.
Got a few votes. But he's not around enough.
Yeah.
And he lost twice to Roman. I don't know how you get.
No.
Seth Rollins got written in quite a bit. Mm-hmm. But I had this argument. We'll get into this in topic number 2. I don't know how you make that argument. So that's it. That is the 2022. That's a wrap up to that. We finally got our awards out. Let us know if you agree or disagree with any of those awards, even though, hey, you guys were a part of choosing them. So for the first time, you really can't say much about it. All right, guys, I want to take a second to talk to you guys about, if you've made it this far, you're probably actually a fan of the show. So I want to take a second. Please go check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/The Casual Wrestling Show. You'll get access to exclusive bonus episodes starting in late January. You'll get behind the scenes content. You'll also be supporting the show and helping us to continue to bring you the best in casual wrestling discussions. So if you want to get more casual wrestling material, consider becoming a patron of the show today. And thank you guys for all of your listening support. I'd also like to give a shout out to the current bloodline of the show, Ian the Noobs Newberry, and It's Zinni. You guys are the best. All right, topic number 2 of the day. We are going to do a recap of the week that was on the Casual Wrestling Daily podcast. Lauren, I want to ask you a couple of the questions that I asked this week to listeners of the show. We got good responses. Okay. Let's start off with, I want you to tell me who had a better year this year, Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins?
Okay. So we kind of talked about it earlier. Like, on paper, it's Roman Reigns. I mean, like, he's fucking the champion, right?
On paper? What does that mean? What does on paper mean?
Like, logistically, he has had the better year.
Okay.
He's won. He's been the champion. You can't fucking argue that, right? But it's the same argument that I have like with Becky and Bianca. Seth Rollins was more interesting.
Okay.
And it's his personality, it's everything. And I'm going to go off heart, not statistics. So I'm going to say Seth Rollins because he, as a character, has been more interesting to me. And all the over-the-top things that he does, right? Like the lace outfits or the crazy jackets and all that stuff keeps me interested in him.
You're saying that makes him superstar of the year?
Yeah.
You're thinking he had a better year.
A superstar to me isn't just...
Okay, wait, so let me back that up because I guess that's not the question. I didn't ask whether he was superstar of the year. I asked whether or not who had the better year, which I guess is different because he technically did wrestle more than Roman Reigns. I still just think it's hard. It's hard to make the argument that he had a better year than Roman Reigns to me. I don't...
That's my opinion.
I think Roman Reigns was the best thing in pro wrestling all year. It's what I said in the awards topic.
Yeah, statistically you can't
Roman Reigns
argue with that.
Roman Reigns is the sun that the rest of wrestling rotates around. And so that's not just WWE. That's all of professional wrestling rotates around Roman Reigns. So I think it's hard for me to make an argument anybody, even if they wrestled more. And I made this argument yesterday was that I think Seth Rollins has regressed as the year has gone on. I don't think he has progressed. I don't think he's gotten better.
I will agree with you on that.
I think that Roman
liked him very much in the beginning, but everything post Cody has been a little
I think it's been
lackluster to me. But still,
so that's to me that's the argument I made was that. So there was this weird phenomenon that everybody argued against that Cody Rhodes turned babyface at some point. And it did happen. You can argue whatever you want, but he turned babyface maybe a month back. And since he's done that, he has been...
You mean Seth Rollins?
What did I say?
You said Cody Rhodes.
Seth Rollins.
Okay.
Seth Rollins turned babyface. Whether it was just a subtle change in his tactics and the way he spoke to the crowd. But it happened, and I think he became very uninteresting at that point. So I have to take Roman Reigns. Right. I don't think... I have a hard time with anybody who makes the argument for Seth Rollins there. Okay, so the second question I had that I asked this week was, if you were starting a wrestling company today, would you take Roman Reigns or would you take MJF?
Okay. I went back and forth on this one like 20 times, right?
Okay.
The emotional side of me wants to say MJF because I like him and I like his personality. But you've mentioned it a couple times, like you can only do asshole for like so long. Plus he's little. So I'm going to go Roman Reigns 100% because he's gotten to a point with his character where like he is not only somebody who I see as somebody to be feared, but he can be funny. He can be caring at times when it comes to like his family and stuff. Like I've gotten interested in his character more. And I think that Sami Zayn, honestly, has allowed me to get more of a likability towards him too. So, I mean, overall, like he just spews out money, money, money.
So I agree with nothing you said is wrong, but the logistics are the problem to me, right? Mm-hmm. It's the idea that Roman Reigns is in the biggest wrestling company in the world and he's 1 foot out the door already. This is the biggest company in the world and he's 1 foot out the door. He's ready to go to Hollywood. It's been, he came out on a live event and said, guys may not see me as much anymore.
Yeah.
And that's for the biggest company in the world. So if I'm starting a new company, how do I convince Roman Reigns that the right thing to do is show up every week and grind it out with me? And I saw arguments for people saying, well, he would bring the Usos. My point was you don't have enough money to get the whole bloodline. When you're starting this company, with indie wrestlers and Roman Reigns.
But you didn't specify that. You didn't say that I had.
That's the spirit of, because the argument can be made then basically is who has more friends, right? MJF is pretty good friends with Cody Rhodes. Does he get to bring Cody Rhodes? MJF is pretty good friends with the whole AEW roster. Are you just getting them?
If I'm working with limited budget, then I could go MJF.
But your arguments I get, and a lot of people made those same arguments. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate against those arguments and explain that Roman is the money. There's no doubt, right? You put Roman Reigns' face on a poster and he sells events. But how long does, and I saw people say they were going to build up baby faces using Roman Reigns. Does Roman Reigns have the same appeal if he loses? Or is Roman's whole character predicated on this idea that he's been champion for 1,000 days, right?
I think that's a lot of what it has to do with, because I remember literally us first watching wrestling, like before I really knew what it was.
People were against Roman
Daniel
Reigns.
Bryan with the yes. And my cousin liked Roman Reigns and wanted us to make him something of it.
Yes.
And I was like, who is this dude?
Yeah,
like,
nobody knew who he was. He really wasn't that important. And so my problem is when you take Roman Reigns, is a little bit of the mystique gone the minute he loses. And if you build this baby face up, and basically, let's say you get Roman for 1 year and you build this whoever this baby face is, you build them up to this pinnacle moment that they beat Roman Reigns. Does that make them important enough to carry your company? Or does it just make them the guy who beat Roman Reigns? At least with MJF, I have a guy that I know can garner attention. I have a guy who I know has a very intelligent wrestling mind. I have a guy who I know can speak and he can build. MJF doesn't get enough credit for the work that he does with other people where he gets them over, like Ricky Starks and people like that. So I think I know if I have MJF, I at least feel safe in the long term that if I build my company around MJF, we may never be AEW or WWE, but at least I do believe there's longevity. With Roman Reigns, I think your place, it's like going to a casino and placing all of your money on like on the roulette,
Black 23
roulette wheel, right? Or I don't know if that's the black number, but you know what I'm saying? It's like placing a bet and going, I'm betting that Roman Reigns is going to get enough attention in the time that I have him that I can sustain this and move on. Whereas with MJF, I think you're saying he's not as big. I get it. He's not as global. I get it. But there's some safety and some longevity there. And I think that I like that better. And I like to believe that with MJF, I could be selective in who I took around him and create a good roster. With Roman, you got one shot, right? If you screw that up and you book that incorrectly, number one, you fuck up, he's out the door because he's not going to put up with bad booking. Yeah. Number two, he's probably out the door the minute he gets a movie deal. He's on the back end of his wrestling career. Yeah, that's the arguments I wanted to make. Look, if you're just playing straight up, close your eyes, nothing else matters, it's Roman Reigns all day. Roman Reigns' face on a poster and everybody knows who he is. But if you've got to take into consideration that there's real factors when starting a company, I think MJF is the smarter bet.
Yeah.
All right, Lauren, should WWE and pro wrestling be held to the same standard as other sports when it comes to testing for performance-enhancing drugs? This was a hot button one.
Okay. So like steroids and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think when I phrased the question the first time, a lot of people took it as drugs in general. The spirit of the question I was trying to ask was... like
growth hormone, all that
steroids.
Stuff.
Okay. Steroids. Is
like the things to make them bulk up and be better or something
yes,
like that, right?
It should...
So
let me break this down because I think it goes deeper. I think the argument that people try to make is basically, is wrestling a sport or not? That I think we'll start there.
What is a sport? Like what determines if it's a sport, I guess is the question.
This is a whole different argument that I've gotten into a lot of fights with a lot of people about.
Okay.
So I believe, this is my argument. I believe that sports, and this is, so before people jump on me and tell me I'm wrong, these are my definitions. These are not definitions that I think I found somewhere. This is how I choose to categorize and define things in my head. A sport is an event where there is a winner determined 100% by skill.
Okay.
Basketball, football, track.
So cheerleading is not a sport?
No, it's an event.
Okay.
Which does not mean, this is the argument where I've gotten into a lot of cheerleaders about this, and is that anything that is judged, to me, is an event.
Okay. I mean, I can accept it.
And there was a long argument I had one time.
Like Charlotte.
But that shouldn't take away from the athleticism, right? There are athletes in both sports and events. It's just how I categorize it in my head, because in cheerleading, it's subjective. There is a judge, and that judge ultimately has 100% control over who wins and loses. If that judge does not like one person, they can't. Same with MMA, right? And this is where it gets dicey, right? Because calling MMA not a sport is really weird, but I think it's more of an event.
Yeah.
Because
same with boxing.
So
boxing?
No, because now I'm going back on that, because MMA, you can win if you just knock the other motherfucker out.
Yeah.
But it also can be left up to the judge. So I'm going to call that sport, because there is a clear path to win by and
then the judge
talent.
Can be the ultimate.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like cheerleading, you can't just do more flips than the other team. The judge has to decide your flips were better, and to me that's an event. Wrestling to me is an event. It is not a sport. Now, let's still go one step further. You still have to regulate performance enhancing drugs within sports and events. You can't let cheerleaders just go do steroids because it's not a sport. I'm on the fence here. I don't love taking a hard stance, but I think that in life, the problem is anytime there's a pill that you can take, and this can be fictional or real, and it elevates you to another level, and it does some form of chemical change to your body, be it safe or unsafe, creating an unfair advantage. I don't think that is okay, as far as like the level of like if you have two people competing to be pro wrestlers, right? Yes. They start off both at 18 years old. One guy decides, I'm going to take things and put them in my body that alter the makeup of my body. The other guy goes, I'm not going to do that because I know that's not healthy. One person immediately gets an unfair advantage. I don't feel like, just in general, that's okay. Let me ask you this. This is just kind of an off-topic thing. Would you, if you knew you could take steroids right now, steroids, and they would elevate you in your job, but you immediately lost 10 years of your life, would you do it?
What is my job?
Any job. I'm saying any job, like right now, what you do right now. If you could take a pill for whatever job you do, you could immediately take it and it would cut 10 years off of your life. Would you take it?
I'm the wrong person to ask.
No, it's not, because
I'm going to say, fuck yes, I would.
See, that's crazy.
I don't want to live that last let's say I'm going to live 100 years, 90 to 100 probably may not be that much fun.
Wrong. That's a bad answer. What if you only live until 50? You're assuming you're going to 100. You're taking 10 years off of whatever your expiration is. So if it's 50, now you get to live till 40.
I'm also an instant gratification person.
Exactly.
So I would definitely just say, yes, let's go do it right now.
I get it.
This is also why you're not going to like my answer.
No, I'm not going to. I don't care what your answer is.
Your question originally was,
should WWE or pro wrestling be held to the same standard as other sports when it comes to testing for performance enhancing drugs?
So now let's define performance enhancing drugs. Now, are we limiting them to like just a certain amount of them, or just any whatsoever? Like, let's go for it all. You can take whatever you want.
So I think what I'm speaking of are so I get that there are certain, like they're coming to find out like injuries are healed through like steroids and things like that.
Yes.
I think that is okay. I think that just like guys who juice up and become extreme giants, and first off, you have a responsibility in the ring to take care of other people.
I'm not super familiar with like all that stuff. So I'm going off the thought of like human growth hormone, which I've heard of, HGH. Right? It's supposed to like help your muscles get bigger and stuff like that. Yeah. And I think that like there's steroids that like just help your muscles get bigger. I'm not 100% sure.
So they aid, you still have to go work out.
Okay.
But they aid in like the development of muscle. Yes.
I'm going to go off of those two. I'm not saying that like hardcore drugs or anything like that.
No.
Those definitely should be, monitored and stuff.
Yeah.
But as far as the other stuff, I say no, they shouldn't be regulated, because there is not a competitiveness as far as like who's going to win and not. It's already determined.
There is. That is the disagreement I make. That is, while there's not a competitiveness, I agree. There's there's not a winner in the fight. They are competing for a spot.
Yeah.
But that, to me, that creates so basically then
but that's not saying that all the giants are going to be the best.
Yes, it is.
Because
yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is though.
You don't know.
Yes, it is. Do you like to watch small? Do you like to AEW proven concept? Do you like to watch all the small, scrawny wrestlers, or do you prefer the ones that are big and brawny and look like gladiators?
The big brawny gladiators.
Okay, so now you're talking about the only way to become a professional wrestler will be to do
Seth
steroids.
Rollins, I enjoyed watching him, and I don't think that.
But
he's
what
a
if
big
Seth Rollins
brawny.
was on steroids then? No, my point is it makes a better version of who he is.
I guess
so then you're raising the goalpost every time.
Yeah.
And there will be no way to become a professional wrestler without doing steroids. Because let's face it, if they're stronger, if they run faster, if they jump higher, they immediately have a competitive advantage. And I understand the argument.
How many wrestlers do you think right now are on steroids?
I have no clue. I wouldn't even guess because I have that's where, like, to me, that question would take this podcast from casual to having insider information. I have no fucking clue. I don't know one person who wrestles. Sledge, I've talked to like 3 or 4 times through like TikTok and things like that. But like, that's the closest acquaintance I would call somebody like I could reach out to and ask a question.
I don't even really know what like steroids do. So like, I wouldn't
I understand
know. I'm not
steroids.
educated
I've been
enough,
around.
but I like just my initial off the thought, like no other going like far into it. That's my initial
So you
opinion.
got to take baseball.
But I also was going to take the 10 years off my life.
But take baseball.
To do it, so.
In the 90s, there were a bunch of baseball players who took steroids and hit like 1 billion home runs.
Yeah.
Made the game way more exciting, but the argument is it's not fair because if certain guys could do it and certain guys weren't doing it, it wasn't fair.
I mean, I guess that's true.
But the argument I make is because then they go, well, just let everybody do it. Not everybody wants to put a drug inside their body. So you create an unfair, you're creating essentially like
if you don't do drugs, you can't make it. Son.
Exactly. It becomes this idea of where it really, to me, what it becomes is talent gets taken out of the equation because no matter how good you are and how hard you practice, there's a guy who could be taking a substance that makes him bigger than you, makes him faster than you, makes him stronger than you. And by that means, I think that you have to regulate them. I understand the argument.
Are there some that are like okay for you though? Like, are there some?
My understanding is if you take like HGH in the right amounts, that it can be effective in like healing
maybe
injuries.
They regulate the amount,
but you can never do that because there's always that's like gun control and shit like that, right? There's always some asshole who's gonna go way past what the rule is.
Yeah.
And then the rule will just keep, this guy says because he weighs 300 pounds that he needs more HGH to do what he needs to do. And so you have to keep moving. You have to keep moving. Or how about just not allow it? I mean, the simplest way is just go, it's not allowed.
I mean, yeah, that's true. That would be fair, but
it's the simplest thing. Like, what is wrong with like going, the only way you can get big and strong and physical is to go put the work in.
This is the truth. It is true.
Yeah.
You know,
that's my argument. All right, let's last question here is, who is your greatest wrestler of all time? No, so I'm gonna preface this for you. So no, who do you consider to be the greatest wrestler of all time? And I'm gonna preface this for you because I think before people jump on whatever answer you give, the answer to this question, because I asked this question knowing it's a loaded question when I asked it on TikTok, and it gets a ton of answers. People have to understand your greatest wrestler of all time is your greatest wrestler of all time because of what you've seen. So when everybody, there's a ton of support for Ric Flair, and they tend to go, if you don't say Ric Flair, or if you don't say Hulk Hogan, everybody has to understand your greatest wrestler of all time is who you saw. I grew up with Michael Jordan. He's the greatest basketball player of all time to me. Mm-hmm. People who grew up with like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Wilt Chamberlain, they say that. People who've grown up in the LeBron James era are going to say LeBron James is the best basketball player of all time. There is no wrong answer to who is the greatest wrestler of all time. It's 100% based on what you think. So I'll preface this before because I know you're going to panic. You're going to panic and go, I'm going to say the wrong answer. And I remember, I'm going to go into a story real quick. I remember watching Tough Enough. and Stone Cold asked, I think it was Cameron, a question of what was your favorite match of all time? And she listed some like random women's match, and they all made fun of her. Mm-hmm. And that always kind of pissed me off because that's extreme gatekeeping, right? What the fuck does it? That may be her in her life and the amount of wrestling she's watched and the time she's chose to spend doing what she does. What does it matter what her favorite match was? What does it matter if she's not extremely knowledgeable about the sport? It doesn't change her ability to do it. So I'm prefacing that with the idea that whatever you say, you don't need to panic.
Yeah.
You haven't watched wrestling, but maybe a total of a year and a half in your life that I've had you sit down and watch. And in the last year, you've really committed to watching it. But before that, you would watch one event with me, and then you wouldn't watch for 3 or 4 months, and then you'd sit down and watch an event with me, which is okay. So I think it's interesting to get your perspective. Like when someone asks me who is the greatest wrestler of all time, I say Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
And there's a group of people who will agree with me. And then there's a group of people who will be extremely mad that I just said that. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't say Ric Flair, because I didn't say Hulk Hogan, because I didn't say John Cena.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you, I want your honest answer. Don't overthink this. Who is the greatest wrestler of all time to you?
Roman Reigns.
Awesome. Good answer.
Roman Reigns.
I think that's a fair
and that's
answer.
Somebody who I did not initially like at all. I told you, like, my first, like, I guess introduction was wrestling was watching you play the video game, right? Then we went to WrestleMania, right? Then I knew Daniel Bryan, right? Then he was my thing because I liked the Bellas. Mm-hmm. Then from there it went to like us getting back into it and stuff. And then I was like, oh, this is Roman Reigns now? I like him.
Look, I'm with you.
I was actually really sad when he beat Brock because I really like Brock Lesnar, but because I liked MMA. But Roman Reigns, I said it earlier, was somebody that I've fallen in love with as his character has kind of built.
For the same reasons I pick Chris Jericho, I can understand that you pick Roman Reigns. What he's done in the modern era of wrestling, people, they undervalue it. Being champion a bajillion days. And I told you, I gave you the statistic that I read on the podcast yesterday about humans going from having a 12-second attention span to an 8-second attention span, which is now 1 second. We have 1 second less attention span than goldfish.
That's crazy.
So to be able to hold people's attention for this long is phenomenal. And it is, you have to make adjustments for time. Hulk Hogan, Bruno Sammartino, those guys were champion for like 7 years because back then they came to a city once every fucking 2 years, and then and there was territories.
But it doesn't matter where you go.
Everybody loves Roman.
Exactly.
Everybody loves Roman. It doesn't matter where you go.
He can make the whole stadium quiet.
100%.
And they fucking acknowledge him.
100%.
Whether for the wrong reasons or right reasons.
So back up a little bit. How the fuck did you just pick Seth Rollins to be superstar of the year and Roman Reigns to be the greatest of all time?
Because they're two different things to me. One was of the year and one is all time. Two different time periods. I think this is
Roman Reigns' best year ever. So it's a strange argument.
Well, I don't know how, like, what he was like the year before is my thing. Like, so in my mind, Roman Reigns is just Roman Reigns and he wins all the time. And that's all that it is.
Been a ramp
in the past year and a half that we've kind of been really watching, like, hardcore, that's all that I know is he wins.
This last year with Paul Heyman and the Bloodline and the whole everything, he's kind of really brought it all together and like proven he's the guy.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of the Casual Wrestling Daily Podcast? If so, we have an exciting contest for you. For every 5-star review you leave on Apple Podcast or Spotify, you will be entered into a drawing to win a $25 WWE Shop gift card. This is a great opportunity to let us know what you think of the show and to show your support for the Casual Wrestling Daily Show. Plus, who doesn't want a chance to win some cool WWE merchandise from the WWE Shop? So don't wait. Head over to Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave a review right now. Make sure to include your name and a social media account you use in the review so we can contact you if you win. Winners will be selected the day after the Royal Rumble. Thank you guys for listening to our show and for your support of the Casual Wrestling Daily Podcast. We can't wait to see all of the amazing reviews we get, and we can't wait to announce the winner of the $25 WWE Shop gift card. Good luck. All right, topic number 3, Lauren. This is about AJ Styles. So it is being reported that AJ Styles suffered a leg injury during a WWE live event. Sources note that Styles' injury occurred while he was performing in a match, raising the question of whether wrestling more frequently at these types of shows may increase the risk of injury for wrestlers. My question for the listeners today is, do you think WWE superstars who wrestle a full calendar schedule have a higher risk of injury compared to indie and AEW wrestlers who can control their own schedule?
Are you asking me the question?
No, I was that was being, that's going to get clipped and put in other places.
All right.
I have a little run through and then I'll let you jump in, but let me kind of go through what I've got written down here. So let's start off. Let's start off for anybody who's a casual fan, including yourself. Let me make some definitions here. You understand that a house show or a live show is an event that is not broadcast on television. It is a show that travels just like regular wrestling, but it's performed in typically smaller venues and smaller cities. Not always, but they're non-televised shows. Whereas a televised taping is a live event filmed and edited for television.
Yes,
we understand that. So you can make two arguments to what I just said, to the question I just asked. Right? There's the one argument that house shows are a necessity because they allow wrestlers to hone their skills, to try out new things in kind of a low pressure environment. They provide the opportunity for fans to see wrestlers in more intimate settings, and the wrestlers don't have to be what I call like turned on. They don't have to be like in character. They can leave character a little bit and interact with the fans. Typically ticket prices are a lot cheaper. So it kind of just helps build a connection between the superstar and the fan. That's the argument for why these shows exist.
Yeah, and it's additional revenue.
So
no,
I'm gonna say that argument doesn't work, because I think the argument for television tapings is revenue. You make more money when you can put commercials. Why wouldn't you just? There's an argument to be made that why isn't every wrestling show televised now? Because with the internet, you don't have to have a television deal to put your show on. It's why I laugh at a lot of. I don't laugh. That's the wrong term. But I'm kind of mystified at a lot of indie wrestling companies who don't have their own television network, right? They don't have their own Twitch channel that is constantly doing interviews. I could run a wrestling company super easy in 2023. Just off the marketing side of having a Twitch channel that was mimicking AEW and WWE just on a smaller scale. So I'd make the argument that the house shows are making less revenue. They're in smaller buildings. Mm-hmm. The same wear and tear on a wrestler's body, but you're not making as much money. So the potential, so you have to look at it from the sense of a wrestler can only wrestle so many times a year, right? Your body can only handle so many times. And WWE stars are doing it like 3 or 4 times a week. And an injury can occur in any kind of match. It doesn't have, it can be a house show, it can be a regular show, but I do believe that the frequency at which you are forced to wrestle, and I say forced, most of them love to do it, but the frequency at which you have to wrestle, especially at house shows, has to contribute to injuries. When you're an indie guy, you can choose, I don't feel good this week, I'm going to take this week off. Now, I think WWE has gotten a lot better. I think the WWE has improved in giving wrestlers the ability to kind of have a little more autonomy over their own body and when they choose to wrestle. But if you listen to CM Punk, he tells you, they made me wrestle with broken arms, broken wrists, broken bones, broken ribs. Like he just kind of said, like, I don't remember who I read, but somebody was like, I tore my shoulder and they gave me 1 day off.
That's crazy.
And so, because the show must go on, right? So that, to me, that is the problem, is that house shows, the wear and tear that it puts on your body, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the responsibility ultimately has to fall back, like I said, on WWE, that they've got to place a premium on the wrestler's health.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you 100%.
They have to, if these house shows are going to be these intimate things and guys are a little banged up, you have to give them the ability to opt out, to go, I'm not feeling it today. You know, like they need adequate rest and recovery. Look at it this way, Lauren. 3 to 4 days a week, they are having to go perform physical, like being slammed against the ground.
Yeah.
But not just that. They don't sleep in their house.
Yeah.
They're in a hotel room.
Or in a car driving and like, ew.
Yes. Like, so for, I'd say 3/4 of the year, they are traveling, moving around in hotel rooms, never really getting to recover. So I mean, it's what the original question was. What I don't remember.
It was.
How I phrased
do you
it.
think that basically having them perform more often leads them prone to injury?
Do I think that WWE stars are at a disadvantage? I do. I do believe so, because I think indie wrestlers and even
I agree with you.
Even AEW wrestlers, they're afforded a little more control over how often they wrestle, but more importantly, who they wrestle.
Oh, really?
And I think that goes, well, yeah, if you're indie and you show up and they go, hey, you're wrestling this guy who beats the shit out of people. Mm-hmm. I'm not. That's not what I'm doing. And you can go home. When you're in WWE and you show up and they go, hey, today's a Gunther day.
Yeah.
And not anything against Gunther, but you see he's extremely physical. He's slapping the shit out of people.
Yeah.
And maybe you're just not feeling 100% today. You can't go.
No,
not today. I'm not wrestling Gunther today, right?
Yeah.
That puts your job on the line. And now the counter argument to that is when you're in WWE, you make a lot more money than other people. But I think that physical well-being, it has to be important there. And then on top of that, it's just like the mental health of like not being able to, what family time do you have as a professional wrestler?
None.
If you're like, it makes sense that so many wrestlers end up with wrestlers. You watched
something with Charlotte Flair, right? And she like kind of touched about that like her dad was gone all the time.
Yeah, that her dad was gone all the time. Look, it's even worse if you're in 2 different companies.
Yeah.
That means you're constantly traveling in different directions. You're not even like, maybe like Charlotte Flair gets to go home, but Andrade's on the road. Mm-hmm. And when Andrade gets to go home, Charlotte's on the road. So it's weird. There is a weird, like, to me, wrestling, there should be off season. There really should. And even if it was
they have like an A and a B squad, like one does
I made that argument.
Year, the other I made that argument. Other part of the year.
Why is there not an off season? Why, to me, more importantly, why is there not 2 or 3 months where wrestling slows down and you take some of the lower card guys and move them up and have an off season? And then the WrestleMania should be the Super Bowl of wrestling. Mm-hmm. It should be this big event. It's blown. It's huge. And then we take maybe just a month off. Let's take 1 month off post WrestleMania and let's go NXT. Let's feature the shit out of NXT. And then when we come back, we will have seen the NXT guys and we can start to integrate them into WWE.
Yeah.
But I do think there has to be an off season. Those guys go 365 days a year, 3 to 4 nights in a different city. It's just like the toll that it has to take on your body. I am surprised there is not more injury.
True. And
then you got to talk, like, you're not talking about, like, fucking AJ Styles is like 72 years old. And I don't mean, I'm being really being smart ass when I say that, but like, fucking age, there's no beating father time, right?
No.
Bobby Lashley is like almost in his 50s.
That's crazy.
CM Punk almost in his 50s. AJ Styles, I think R-Truth is in his 50s, and we saw him blow like a quad muscle because it's just like your body just cannot handle if you can't recover and you're doing physical activity every day, being slammed against the ground, it's almost impossible to stay healthy. They have to. There has to be some kind of, and there's no unions and things like that. I understand, but there's got to be somebody who looks at professional wrestling and goes, we either need an off season or we have to allow wrestlers, 2 to 3 months off. And like I said, they're getting better about it. You see people like Charlotte take some time off. You see different people taking time off, but look at Randy Orton. Randy Orton had to go have surgery because his body, I don't even think it's just like one injury. It's just a toll of the impact his body's taken.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Is he coming back anytime soon?
Who knows? Like, there's some people who are saying.
He's still under contract. So if you're under contract, do you still get paid?
I bet. Oh, I'm sure he's getting paid. 100%. I'm sure. Like
they want to keep him.
Yeah, they want to keep him happy. And
like
even
what they did with Paige, right? Where they still paid her even though she technically wasn't wrestling.
Well, and I think that with Randy Orton, it's not even like Paige. I think they have a belief he'll come back at some point.
Yeah.
All right, Lauren, let's do it. It's time for topic number 4, the famous 20 questions. Okay, so I have a name here. Okay. You have 20 questions.
I don't feel good about this one.
I'm going to preface it. I'm going to start out by saying this could be easy. And I'm telling you, there's one thing that's getting hard. We might have to lower the number of questions because there is a direct line of questions.
Okay.
And I'm not going to give them to you, but there is a direct line of questions that narrows it down extremely quickly. And then it's kind of a just guessing game. And you can, so I've considered narrowing this down to 15 questions.
Yeah, I know.
But we'll go 20. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll give you this last one.
Is it SmackDown?
Yes.
Is it a man?
No. See, that's the line. Those 2 questions were exactly what I'm talking about. Those immediately eliminate half.
Are they a returning character? In other words, what I mean is like they had gotten cut or left WWE.
Yes.
Okay. Do they have colored hair? Colored hair as in like
a rainbow colored hair, like colors outside of
anything other than a naturally occurring hair color, meaning blue. I mean, wait, like black, blonde.
Okay. No.
They don't have colored hair?
No.
Okay. Do they have blonde hair?
Yes. This is too easy. I don't like this. We gotta have to figure out how to make this harder.
Okay, but they returned. Do they have a male partner?
Yes.
Did they spit like fire at somebody? Like
no.
Okay.
7.
They're blonde and they have a male partner.
I feel like 10 questions is more appropriate. 10 questions would be more fun.
They returned.
I feel like I've got you on this one.
I don't know this one. So they're blonde. Blonde. Are they a natural blonde?
No.
Okay, so they have fake blonde hair. Did they wrestle last week? Fake blonde hair?
No, I don't think so.
Fake blonde
That's
hair.
9.
They have a man. They're on SmackDown.
Yes.
Are they like brown? And when I say brown, like my color, or
yes.
like it's Zelina Vega.
It's Zelina Vega. See, 10.
Yes.
We gotta. Okay, so we're gonna have to rework this game. We're gonna have to rework this game.
You almost got me on that one.
It's getting too easy.
You almost got me.
We're either gonna have to include AEW wrestlers.
Okay.
Or because I've looked at it and there's almost no person I can get. I can either find somebody that I know you're not gonna get.
Yeah.
Or if I pick somebody,
that was a good one though, because there was a chance that I did not get it.
So the idea was that I thought by you saying, did they return? I thought I had you because she did leave and come back.
Yeah.
But it was pre all this Triple H stuff.
Yes. But I didn't even, after I asked that question, I honestly did not even take that into consideration. I just went down the rabbit hole.
And then you said, does she have colored hair? Well, I mean,
it's colored.
It's colored.
It's technically colored. Yes, you're right.
It's not.
But then when I knew if it was like a natural blonde or a fake blonde, then I went to like,
and see, then I thought there was
a
chance with Zelina. She used to be Raw, Monday Night Raw, and she moved over with Legazma. All right.
Okay.
So I'm gonna revamp
I've only
it.
lost one.
I know that's not good.
It's because I'm a champion.
We have to figure out how to make this better.
You know what? Let's not forget that I am still the belt wearer in this family.
We haven't had a premium live event in feels like forever.
No, I don't know where I put the belt.
It's back there. It's behind.
All right. I'm not even going to attempt to put it on because that's always interesting.
That is all the time we have today. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Casual Wrestling Daily Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you have any suggestions or thoughts for future episodes, please don't hesitate to reach out and drop those in the comments. And don't forget to join us on Monday, same time, same place for more wrestling talk. Until then, it is time to ring the final bell.
Ding, 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 ding.
Step in the ring, if you ready, let's go. Hey, casual wrestling community show. You already know, talking WWE. Keep it rolling and hosted by Notorious Nerdy D. Dope show that you gon' find. Tune in cause it's online. Hit 'em with a figure 4 leg lock, power driver or clothesline. We bringing that heat like for show, but you should already know the casual wrestling community show. Let's go. Yeah, Notorious Nerdy D. Woo!